Just remember peaks and troughs. Your peaks and troughs can confuse you. They can confuse you if you are not sure which trend line you are on. And we all want you to be on the getting better trend line, not the getting worse trend line. We want you to be on the getting better trend line. Good afternoon, how are you all? Dr. David Johnson here. Again, it's Friday afternoon, so it's time for us to do a little video, and we're going to use the virtual whiteboard today, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit clearer to see. I've just noticed some of the little talks that we've done, the whiteboard clarity was a little bit suboptimal, so I'm just going to experiment a little bit with our virtual whiteboard, and we're going to talk about rehabilitation during back pain, the right and wrong things to do, and we're also going to talk about peaks and troughs, or ups and down during rehabilitation, and what that means and why it happens. What I'm going to draw here is a schematic or a little diagrammatic representation of someone's rehabilitation, and I use this through the week for a patient who was having some problems understanding why they were feeling the way they were, and this was really useful for them to then be able to conceptualize the processes, the physiological processes that were happening in their body whilst they were recovering from their back pain. So back to some basic maths here. On the y-axis here, we've got our pain and disability level, and on the x-axis we've got our time. And let's sort of imagine that you're traveling along pretty comfortably, and this is your normal. Okay, this is your normal level of pain and disability, or you're pretty much having minimal pain and disability, and coping very well in life. And then you're traveling along, and then you have a work injury, and then of course your level of ability is going to drop down. Okay, so this is decreasing function. Okay, so let me just reverse that. So your level of ability drops down, and then you sort of intervene with some form of therapy, whatever that may be, and things hopefully start to plateau off, right, or stop deteriorating at the same rate. And this could be deteriorating over minutes or weeks or months. Okay, so there's no real, it's an arbitrary time frame that we're talking about. And patients can then stay in this state with poor control of their pain, poor capacity to do things in their normal daily life for a very long time. And usually what happens during this time is that you will receive multiple different forms of symptom-based therapy. So we'll write that in here, symptom-based therapy. Okay. Of course, you will do things like have a bit of a rest. You might take some medications, Panadol, Nurofen, Celebrex, You might receive some manual therapy. Lots of people enjoy the feeling of someone rubbing their tight muscles and their sore back. And things will sort of linger, and they might sort of go up and down like this. But as a general rule, there's going to be a trend that develops. Okay, there's a trend that develops, and the trend is either heading in this direction, or the trend is heading in this direction over time. And anyone watching this video is going to be able to determine which line they are following. Okay, are they the yellow line of getting truly better? A very good colour, that. Or are they the blue line and steadily getting worse? Okay. And the main determinant of which way you end up heading is what happens here. Is there a cause? Oops, excuse me. Is there a cause focused intervention? Okay, have we put in something that addresses the root cause of why this happened in the first place? Okay, why did our level of capacity and our pain deteriorate in the first place? And we all know that cause is movement dysfunction. Okay, I'll put that in another colour. We're going to call that movement dysfunction. That is the disease that is causing the massive majority of people's back pain. About 1.5 to 2 million people in Australia today. Movement dysfunction. And remember, movement dysfunction, as we said earlier, can happen in a split second. If you fall down the stairs, if you pick up something that's a bit too heavy and you pick it up with poor technique, it can happen very suddenly, and that's called an accident. Or it can happen fast, or it can happen over years, okay, in a chronic fashion, so it can happen slow. Fundamentally though, movement dysfunction is still at the root cause of why this deterioration happens. That's the root cause. Okay, and when you throw in these symptom-based treatments, they can allow you to have these slight improvements in symptoms. But eventually, if you do not eliminate the cause, you're going to head in this direction. Okay, you're going to head in this direction if you don't implement movement therapy. Okay, and that's exactly what we're about. You know, we're very confident to say that we are the leaders and the pioneers of movement-focused therapy to address root cause of the problem in the first place and to try to prevent you going in that direction. If and when you finally get to us and start implementing functional movement therapy, which is a cause-based therapy, and this is now relating to the patient that was having some problems understanding what was happening during his rehabilitation. Okay, it's really important to conceptualize this, is that you are going to have peaks and you're going to have peaks and troughs during your rehabilitation. This is the key of this talk. You're going to have peaks and troughs. Okay, but the main issue, the main trend that you're going to be noticing, and it can be a bit confusing, is that you are getting better. But what I was explaining to my patient, who was most definitely improving as he was around the 6 week mark, he could really feel 6 weeks mark of his NeuroHab program. It's an 8 week program, so he was feeling fantastic. And then he reached the 8 week mark, and I caught up with him. Let's say the 8 week mark was. Let's say the 8 week mark was here. Okay, and he was in a trough, and there's a very good reason for the trough, is because he engaged in an activity as he thought he was feeling great that was slightly beyond his capacity. Remember, we still have a functional capacity versus functional demand equation that has to be balanced off like a seesaw. And when people start to get a little bit better, they commonly engage in activities that exceed their capacity, and that of course can lead to a dip, and it can worry people that they're back to square one. But if you revert back to the basic principle that we're trying to teach you and re-implement movement proficiency in your activities of daily living, you very quickly come back up to that trend line. Okay, and as time goes on, you are just trending so well that even your little dips are miles better than you were when you were existing down here. Now, that's what was helpful in explaining why there's no reason to panic and think that everything's going pear-shaped when you have these troughs, so to speak. And then let's look at the other side of the trend line. When you may engage in some activity, you might take a day off work, okay, so you feel pretty good. But because you have set yourself on this destiny to get worse by not engaging in functional movement therapy, okay, by not engaging in NeuroHab, you really have this false sense that you're getting better because you've had a day off work, you've taken some new pain medication, okay, and you think, oh yeah, that's fantastic, but really you've just had a peak in the situation, and it will deteriorate again. Okay? And then you'll go, oh gosh, that's really bad, so I'll have another day off work 2 weeks later, and then you'll think, oh, it's much better again, and then you'll start to feel better. But this is what's happening. Okay, this is the trend, and all along you're going in this direction, and you get these ups and downs, and this is where you get misled into a false sense that you're doing the right thing. These peaks are what give you the false sense that you're doing the right thing. Okay, so these could represent time off, maybe something like suitable duties. And then it comes to suitable duties. A lot of workers have that issue. You might stop doing your favourite sport, your favourite gardening. You might take a new tablet, and it works for a little while. You might take a new tablet. You might have an injection. Okay, even like down here, when it's really bad, someone may do surgery for you. Okay, and you get this amazing, oh yeah, the surgery was great, but only for a little while, because if you do not implement a strategy, a treatment strategy, a cause-focused strategy that actually eliminates movement dysfunction, even the surgical intervention will the benefits, the short-term benefits will fail, and you'll be back on this path because you already set yourself on that trend line by choosing, or not necessarily choosing, but by not being directed towards a cause-based intervention. All right, so just remember peaks and troughs. Your peaks and troughs can confuse you. They can confuse you if you are not sure which trend line you are on. And we all want you to be on the getting better trend line, not the getting worse trend line. We want you to be on the getting better trend line, because that assures us that you will continue to improve, even if you have some hiccups along the way, okay? And then likewise, if you're on the getting worse trend line, these little moments of feeling better are very misleading, because you're not really getting better. You've just engaged in another symptom-based intervention, and you eventually run out, and the symptom-based interventions eventually don't work. Okay, so now you don't get those little relieving periods because nothing's working anymore. And that's pretty much the history that people give me time and time again when we talk about their chronic back pain. History. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I hear it and see it every single day, and that's a way that I can make it clear to patients, so that they understand why it's so important to engage in functional movement therapy, and preferably earlier the better. That first episode of back pain that you get, it's so easy to implement the treatment then. But if you've had back pain for years, and if you keep doing the wrong types of rehabilitation, you'll then be deeper and deeper down this path here, much further down the track, and it's then not impossible, but a much more challenging place to come back from. Okay, and just don't let yourself be the statistic here. Don't let yourself be the statistic. Low back pain, the single leading cause of disability on the planet. There should not be that type of back pain. Back pain should not be a problem in our society if we maintain the all-important movement proficiency. Okay, movement proficiency. And all of our staff are absolutely passionate about teaching patients how to regain their movement proficiency. Well, I hope that helps some people, or most people, or everyone watching, understand what they need to do. I'm just looking at my virtual whiteboard there. It looks a little bit messy, but I think we've got the message across. Just watch the video again if you're not sure. And I will look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a great weekend, guys.